Welcome to a quick demo of Ascension Tactics. Ascension Tactics is a revolutionary deck building miniatures game that's live on Kickstarter right now. Unfortunately, because we can't be in the same room, I'm going to have to demo this to you on Tabletop Simulator. But the upside is you can actually play this game right now by downloading it on the Tabletop Simulator Workshop for free, so you can get a sense of the game, play it, enjoy it, and I'm going to teach you how so you can kind of get through it quickly. So when you first load your game in Tabletop Simulator, you're going to see quite a few different options here. There's a bunch of different modes that you can play in Ascension Tactics. There's a whole variety of miniatures that you can choose from. There's cooperative and solo modes, and I have other videos that will help walk you through that. You can kind of see where these villain cards are and everything. You can also, once you know the game, you can draft your starting champions and get this whole unique setup. But what we're going to do for your first game, we're just going to hit the preset champs button here, and that's going to set up the board for the easiest way to get started. So we're going to go ahead and let that happen. And I'll start explaining how the game works. So for anyone that's familiar with Ascension, the deck building game, you'll notice a lot of similarities. There's a bunch of stuff that we took as a foundation that's exactly the same as Ascension, but I'll explain it just in case for those of you that don't know how to play the game. It will explain it. So the first thing, make sure that you pick one of these two teams, either the blue team or the yellow team. We have a bunch of custom scripting on here that will only work if you're blue or yellow. That gives you the ability to play cards and do sorts of things. So that's one pro tip for the workshop. Everybody starts with the same starting deck of cards, which in this case is going to be 8 apprentices and 2 militia. And you're going to draw a hand of 5 cards to start with. This is my starting hand here. You'll see that the cards provide you with runes and power. That's the red circle there is power. The triangle is runes. Runes are used to buy new cards for your deck. Those cards are generally going to be over here on the side. This is the center row. These cards are constantly going to be changing. And so what you'll do is you'll play the cards out of your hand, and you can buy cards equal to the cost of whatever you're able to get. So for example, in this case, I play out my 5 apprentices here, which gives me 5 runes. I'm going to group these back up and put them back in the deck since I don't need them right now. And you'll see that I could buy a card from over here. The cost of the card is in the upper right hand corner. The card, when you buy it, will go to your discard pile, and then the effect you get when you reshuffle your discard pile will be here on the bottom. So once you go through that process, that's the same as in Ascension, right? You'll keep buying new cards. Every time you buy a card from here, the card in the center will be replaced, and you'll continue to improve your deck over time. When you end your turn, you discard any unplayed cards. It'll go to your discard pile, and then you'll draw a new hand of 5 cards. And then you'll continue through that process. Now, that should be familiar to everybody that's playing Ascension. That's pretty straightforward. But where things change, of course, is this is a tactical miniatures game. So when you're playing a tactical miniatures game, of course, you're going to have these cool-looking miniatures. So we've made replicas of our miniatures all in this in the actual game, and you'll notice they have a few different traits. These champions, that's what we call our miniatures as champions, they have a strength number, which is this first number here, which is how much damage they do. They have a defense number, which is how much damage it takes to knock them out. And then they have a command number. And this is very relevant because the command number is how much power it takes to command your miniature. And this is one of the innovations of this game because it means that you could have very powerful miniatures on your team, but unless you have enough power to command them, you won't be able to activate them. So every player at the start of their turn gains 2 power for free. So you always have 2 power at least to use on your miniatures, plus whatever cards you have in your hand. So in this case, I would have 4 power. That means I could command 2 2-cost miniatures, or I could command a 3-cost miniature. Whenever you command a miniature, you could move it up to 3 spaces and attack any adjacent enemies. In this case, when a miniature is off the board, you come in at your spawn point. This is my spawn point, and this would be my opponent's spawn point. So for example, if I wanted to command 2 miniatures here, I could command the Hedron Smithy and go 1, 2, 3, and I can't command, there's nobody there to attack. The Twilight Scout also has a special power. Twilight Scout gets +1 speed. That's what that little boot icon means. So the Twilight Scout can actually move 4 spaces when she's commanded, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would be the end of that turn. So we tried to make this process as simple as possible, right? That's the way that the commands are going to work, and it makes it very easy. They all generally work the same. Now, in the case where you do attack one of their miniatures, so let's pretend that we had somebody in range here. Let's go ahead and pick a guy that we can fight. So the Spike Vixen has 5 health. Now let's say I wanted to attack her with the Reactor Monk. I would compare my 6 attack to the 5 health of the Spike Vixen. Since that's enough to knock him out, that would the Spike Vixen would be removed from the board, and we would exhaust the card. And what that means is that you will not be able to command the Spike Vixen on the next turn. So every time you knock out one of your opponent's characters, they become exhausted. Every time you command one of your characters, you exhaust it. And at the end of your turn, you ready all the characters that were exhausted, and they can be commanded again. So just because you lose one of your miniatures in a fight doesn't mean that the game's over. You're going to be able to continue to come back, and you're actually, instead of fighting just to kill your opponent's miniatures, you want to be fighting to score honor points. The way you score honor points is through these little honor locations here. You can place anytime you have characters on or adjacent to it, if you have more characters than your opponent, you get 1 point. If you have 2 guys here, it's still just worth 1 point. If you both have a guy here, it's not worth it. It's not worth any points because you don't control it. If I have 2 and you have 1, I would get a point because I'm controlling it. And you can score up to 3 points around on this basic scenario. If I were to control all 3 of these zones, I could get 3 points in a turn. The first player to get to 15 points wins the game. So that's the basics of play. Now there's a couple of other things to talk about with some other card types and some other cool effects. You'll notice these little treasure chests that are around the board. The treasure chests, if you ever land on a treasure chest and end your turn on it, you get to pick it up, and it gives you some special power. There's a bunch of different powers that they can have. I'll show you a few of them here. So they can give you a boost to your speed and your strength. They can give you a boost to your defense. They can give you a boost, or they can give you the ability to strike back. Normally, when you get attacked by an opposing champion, you don't get to attack them back. But if you have the strike back ability, you also get to do your strength and damage back to them. So sometimes you can knock them out, even if you are getting killed. And so those powers stay in your hand. You don't show them to your opponent until you want to use them. So they're a strategic one-time use effect. So these can be really good things to go after during the course of play. In addition, you'll notice these terrain pieces here. These are forests. Forests cost 2 movement points to move into. And if you have a ranged character like this Flytrap Witch over here, ranged characters can shoot up to 3 spaces away. Normally, characters can only attack guys that are next to them, but these forests block line of sight. So if my Flytrap Witch was over here, I wouldn't be able to attack the Twilight Scout because I'm on the other side of the forest. If I was here, she could attack me no problem. So that's range and line of sight and the different terrain places. Now let's talk about a few things about the different card types. Now the main card type in Ascension is the hero, and the hero I've already explained. You play when you draw the hero in your hand, you play it, it does whatever it says, then it goes to your discard pile. When you buy a hero, it goes to your discard pile. You've got to wait until you get to reshuffle to redraw it. The second card type is constructs. Constructs give bonuses. They attach to your miniatures. So I'm going to take this one right here for a second, and I will attach, if I attach it to my Arha Templar, now you can see it's kind of snapped to be next to him. So instead of being an 8 attack, an 8 strength, 5 defense character, now he's a 10 attack, 8 defense character. So it can be very powerful to stack a bunch of constructs on your miniatures. Whenever this miniature gets defeated, in addition to removing from the board and exhausting, any constructs that are on him would be put into the discard pile. So you'd have to redraw them before you could get that effect again. The other thing you might have noticed from this card I just showed you is it has an ambush power. Ambush powers are great because they have an ability that happens as soon as you buy the card. Normally you have to wait till you draw it again, but in the case of the Plasma Rig, ambush is when I buy this, it goes right into my hand. Ambush powers don't do anything once they're in your deck, but they're really useful ones for cards that come out of the center row. And that's basically everything that you need to know to play. There's a few other little tricks and tips here. So one is the Cultist card, who's a really fun little guy. There's a bunch of Cultists that get included with the game. If you ever have extra power that you want to use and you can't command your figures, because you're only allowed to command each figure once, that's why you exhaust them to show that you've used them, you can command a Cultist. Cultists cost 2 power, and you can kind of bring them out and summon them, and they work just like your other champions, except they can't be equipped, and they're super easy to kill. They're kind of a little bit of cannon fodder. But there are a bunch of cards that can help make them more powerful and give you certain bonus effects. So that's the gist of play. Now you'll notice that in the preset scenario, not only did we give you preset champions, but the board is already pre-set up for you. We actually include a bunch of terrain pieces, so you can have extra forest tiles, extra honor shrines, all the different stuff, so you can actually build your own scenarios, and we'll have a few preset scenarios for you that you can play. And again, check out some of the other videos so you'll be able to see how you can play in solo mode, how you can play cooperatively, how you can play 2v2, and we even have a campaign mode that will be introduced later that you can see ways to play and advance your characters and have many scenarios all strung together. So hopefully this gives you a nice brief overview. There's plenty of people here that can help you. You can join our Discord server and ask questions. We have a great community. You can Download the workshop version on Tabletop Simulator of Ascension Tactics and play it yourself. And of course, if you're really interested, please come check us out on Kickstarter and you can back us and help bring this project to life. Thanks so much.